You know, in a way, in a big, big way, really, fear and anxiety have ruled so much of my life. The core of my anxiety started as a child, really. Upsetting and scary things were happening in the family, and I think a lot of other people would report the same. I would have these regular nightmares that evil beings who lived in the walls riddled my house. In a dreamy, darkened room, a deep, haunting alarm sound would get louder and louder to signify the most evil being was coming, and then this dark entity would start emerging out of the wall right over my bed, and this sound would get louder and louder until I felt more and more panicked, and just before I thought I'd be swallowed up, I would awaken and shoot up out of my bed covered in sweat with my heart pounding and my alarm clock just gently chirping in the background. That's what the sound was. Through my adolescence, I had these terrifying bursts of intrusive thoughts. I would feel pretty edgy already, or maybe on the way to a panic attack, and suddenly violent thoughts or disgusting sexual thoughts would flash into my mind, and I would think, oh God, are those my thoughts? I'm so fucked up. I'm done for. And I was worried that I could be possessed by my thoughts. I would have these intrusive thoughts about violent actions that I would obviously never want to do. And then I'd be terrified that my body might get controlled by these thoughts and I'd act out these terrible things. One time, I spent like 20 minutes white knuckle gripping onto my bed because I thought if I let go, I'd be controlled by my thoughts and do something terrible. That's how crazy a panic attack can get, folks. In my very early 20s, I did way too many magic mushrooms with the wrong people in the wrong circumstance. I didn't know anything about set and setting back then. On one of the bad trips, it had me accept my death. I was in terror, seeing visions of fire and demonic faces with my whole body contorted like spaghetti or something, disorientated and uncontrollable. I was convinced it was the end. After another trip, I didn't stop seeing the visual distortions for a long while afterwards, and for the weeks and months following, I genuinely thought I had lost my mind. I called up all the drug helplines only to speak to clueless teenagers sitting in call centers with a script and nothing to say. I thought I had gone crazy and that I'd never be able to see properly again or relate to people or be a normal functioning member of society ever again. Throughout my entire 20s, my life was so ruled by anxiety and fear. Too scared to change careers, too scared to end that relationship that had run its course and was no longer good for either of us. But I was too scared to deal with the loss and be on my own. In my 20s, I used to DJ and produce a lot of electronic music, and I would wake up the next day after parties, after, yes, drinking and taking too many drugs, and almost immediately start having panic attacks that I'd done something stupid or embarrassing. Memories and thoughts of, oh God, what did I say, what did I do, would flash into my mind, and this electrical bolt sensation would tear through my entire nervous system like a shock, leaving me going over the whole entire night in my head and feeling sick to the stomach with all the anxiety about imagine things I might have done that I probably didn't even do. For many years, I would have panic attack after panic attack after panic attack. I would be terrified that I'd go crazy, get early onset dementia, or be fucked up by drugs, or lose my mind. Terrified that reality might not be what it seems, that it might collapse. Terrified of what people thought about me. Wondering if most of my friends actually secretly hated me, or that unknowingly I have a terrible personality that no one really likes and everyone's just being nice to me to appease me. Every time I had a health issue, even if it was minor. My mind would spiral into imagination about it getting worse and worse and messing me up for life or killing me. One of my ex-partners would struggle deeply with alcoholism, rage, and grief. And I would be terrified that if I said or did the wrong thing, she would be so upset that she would go kill herself. The memory already traumatized me of being by the hospital bed of someone I deeply loved, and the doctor telling me they had overdosed on so many prescription drugs, they didn't know whether they would live or die. And I was terrified that if I was a little too harsh or truthful or absent-minded with anyone, that they might spiral downwards and go top themselves. I was often too anxious to even get an erection, really. I didn't have any physical problem, but there were a few times with certain women where we would get close to the bed and I would get terrified about whether I could perform well, whether I'm manly enough, whether she might get disappointed, or whether I even really fancied her. And then I'd end up feeling so nervous and sweaty and then not attracted to her, and I couldn't even get it up anyway. I was too scared to invest in anything because what if the money never comes back and I run out? Too scared to invest any significant amounts in my development or education. Too scared to do what I really loved for years and years because the comfort of a stable job was just too comfortable. And I feared that if I tried to do anything else, I may not be able to pay the bills and everything would collapse and I'd look like a fool. Of course, I didn't start my coaching business until I had healed a significant level of my internal pain and anxiety and negative mindset. I wouldn't be able to help many people from a deep woundedness. I started my coaching business because I felt so ecstatic and clear with so much less anxiety, and I wanted to help others feel the same. But of course, I still had to heal, as I probably still have healing to do now, and the business began to trigger old anxieties at the beginning, previously buried. They started to rear their ugly heads and started screaming, and I would get terrified about whether I would survive, terrified where the next client is coming from, whether I could pay my bills at the end of the month. And I had this feeling that if I even looked to my bank account for a second, I would be struck with this terror and fear, almost like a panic attack. And none of this anxiety helped me create any new clients or money. I saw pretty immediately that I had to heal the anxious inner child, terrified of whether everything's going to fall apart and be taken away. Because that's what I would feel like would happen when I was younger through so much of my life. And it took me many years to heal so much of this. At some point in time, after reading the right books and listening to the right messages, I discovered the instantly accessible peace of my inner being, our inner being. I can see that our inner being is undisturbed by even the most intense fear or challenging situations. But it also took years for that knowledge to start filtering down to the body and mind. So I wanted to make this video to show you that although I am on YouTube talking about overcoming fear and anxiety and finding inner peace and freedom, the reason I'm so passionate about it is because I've suffered so much of it myself, and I've seen how my life and the lives of many people close to me in a big way, have been ruled by it and sometimes ruined by it. I spent years getting my nervous system out of being almost constantly stuck in the fight, flight, freeze response and into calm and equilibrium. I spent years working on all my triggers. I'm human. I still have some fears. Sometimes I still get nervous, and God only knows what future situations might trigger in me. And yes, I definitely still have some triggers to work on, but as you work on them, you feel clearer and clearer over time. But here's the thing, I don't believe it has to be that long for you. I researched into everything I could, from the biology and neuroscience of anxiety to spiritual awakening, to try and heal myself, transcend my fears, start living my dreams, and hopefully help you do the same, but a lot faster. I wanted to find the shortcuts. I wanted to help accelerate your journey so you don't have to feel stuck in any fear for any longer than what's necessary. I want to help the world see, really, that underneath the fear stories in our minds and the discomfort in our bodies, peace is our true nature. Peace is the nature of our true self. And there are ways to shift the body and mind into states of calm clarity from where we can take effective action and get really into flow. Because on a global level, we're never going to heal the world if we're constantly coming from ego and fear. We must be in the peace and stability of our true power as the one consciousness so that we can effectively transform the world, right? I know how poignant it is to clearly see the peace of our being that's here right now is undisturbable and untouchable peace. It's at the core of who we are. I know how revealing and relieving it is to process old fears and feel the release in the energy and the body and the nervous system and the mind. I know it's possible to feel deep peace and contentment for sustained periods, peaking happiness and joy for sustained periods, and to see that how you felt then and how you feel now is completely night and day. I've seen what's possible when we're not crippled by fear and emotional disturbances all the time. I've seen how much more productive, creative, and sustainably disciplined we can be when we're not constantly weighed down by the background anxiety, exhausted from overthinking, and knocked down by panic attacks or frozen in fear. I know how powerful we can be on the other side of fear, and what we're capable of when we learn how to regulate our nervous system and awaken to the peace of our true nature, so we can show up in our full power and make a real positive difference in the world. And I know it's available for you too. So I hope you found this video helpful. That concludes the video. Check out the description of this video to go to speaktoalex.com if you want to apply for the free one-to-one with me or one of my team to see if you'd be a good fit for the Awaken Aware program, a program that's really designed to help you overcome fear and anxiety, find inner peace and freedom. There's also a transformational breath work in the description, and it's been awesome to be with you today. See you in the next video. Peace and blessings. Love you all. Peace.